When it comes to this diagnosis in general, the one area that I still kind of grapple with at times is because I'm functional, I have a family, I have a job, and then people that are dealing with the really hard, nonverbal, aggressive types of kids. And for me to say like, oh, I have that too. Like sometimes I do struggle with that. You know, it doesn't feel like a disability to me. It feels like I think a little differently than some people, but I don't think it's hindered me really in any way.
Welcome to That's Me, a podcast about autistic lives unfiltered. I'm your host, Corey Andreas, a late diagnosed ADHD therapist, advocate, writer, and speaker, and someone on a mission to change the way the world sees autism, one real story at a time. You know that moment when someone describes your exact experience and something in you goes, wait, that's me. That's where this podcast begins. You're here for a reason. Maybe your neurodivergence went unnoticed your whole life. Maybe every therapist you ever saw told you it was just anxiety. Maybe what you thought was depression was actually autistic burnout and nobody had the language for it. I've watched it happen in my own office and at my unmasking retreats. That moment when everything suddenly makes sense. This is neurodivergence. The world thinks it knows what autism looks like, and that picture often leaves us completely out. For those of us who mask so well, we were missed even by the professionals. So skip the textbooks, the outdated DSM, and the stereotypes. This is where you hear it from the people living it. And the professionals we bring in, they're evolving with us, not holding on to outdated ideas that left us behind. Here you'll find real stories from real people. We'll explore the full neurodivergent experience, the confusion, the overwhelm, the cost of being missed and misunderstood, and the joy that comes with finally finding people who see you. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to the That's Me podcast. We have a special guest today, Maggie Latona. Welcome.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
We have much to talk about today.
I'm excited.
So tell me a little bit about your kind of finding your neurodivergence in your life in adulthood. Tell me a little bit about your story.
Well, I could give you the long version. I mean, this goes back really far if I think about it.
We got time.
Great. So I work in special education. I'm an occupational therapist. And so I've been surrounded by neurodivergence since I can remember. I've been working with kids since I was, in high school. And I got into this and I've always enjoyed working with kids, which I think is a common thing for people that are neurodivergent.
We are helpers by nature. Yes, you got that right.
That makes sense. About a year and a half ago, I had been given a neuropsych report for a little girl who I knew a little bit, but not well. And I looked at the report and it wasn't very clear. I feel like it had diagnoses in there, but it didn't really explain why. And so when we were in the meeting about it, I decided, I took the reins and I said, let me call this mom. Let me see what she thinks. I'd like to get her opinion on all of this. So I called the mom and I said, does this seem like your daughter? She had autism, anxiety, ADHD, like a whole bunch of things listed. And the mom said, it does. And I said, can you explain to me, like what sort of things you're seeing at home? What makes you think that this is accurate? So she started telling some stories about her daughter, and the stories she was sharing, I related to many of them. So, but the way that she explained it, it was talking about autism in kind of a very surface level, like what people know about autism, right?
It was more like the stereotypes that you hear.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So mom would say like, she doesn't understand emotions. Okay, can you explain that to me? And she would tell a story like, well, we'll be in the car together and I'm just, looking straight ahead, and she all of a sudden will say like, are you upset with me? So she must not understand emotions. And I thought about it and I said, well, what if she's noticing everything? What if she's super in tune with your emotions and something like a little change in your facial expression or something that you do makes her think that something is going on with you, and she's so hyper vigilant that that's what she's right. That's what she's trying to understand. And mom said, wow, like maybe that is what it is. So the more mom shared, the more I would think, wow, I do that too. It kind of freaked me out a little bit because previously my therapist that I work with, she had brought up that she thought that I possibly was on the autism spectrum. And when she brought it up at that point, I didn't know how it can affect females and how different it can look. So when she said it, I was like, well, I feel that I might have something, but I don't think that that's it.
Yeah.
She let it go. And then when this happened with this mom about a year later, I went back to my therapist and I said, do you still think that I am autistic? And she's like,
So it's still on the table.
she goes, what makes you say that? And I told her the story and she's like, yeah, I do.
Wow.
And so me, talking to a parent about a child at school is what made me realize, like, maybe that's what this is,
Yes.
and it took a good year of a therapist being patient with me for me to come around to it. But then once that was there, and then I love to take in information, as you probably
Yes.
know.
Of course.
And so then learning all about it and how different it looks, I was like, whoa, I do all of
Yeah.
these things. And then it was just, it was over after that. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of crazy.
Game over. Much to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. At 40 years old, I figured all this out. So yeah, it was wild.
Unbelievable. So rewind a little bit. I'm curious, what was it like for you growing up? Did you have this sense that some people explain of being really unique or really different or something being off about yourself?
I have reflected a lot on it. And I think the brand of autism that I have is no one would look back on how I function in the world. I don't think so. And think I was struggling in any way.
Right.
Mine is very much the internalized, overthinking, perseverating, overanalyzing sort. And
Yeah.
so I was just a really good kid. I think it was put in my head at a very young age that, like, you're the responsible one, you're the smart one, you never cause any trouble. And I
Yeah.
think I really took that to heart and I did it and I lived
Yeah.
up to it.
That became an identity.
Yeah, kind of like she's always doing what she's supposed to do. And then I just did it. It's not that that was anyone's fault, but then I think everything just became even more internal, right?
Mm,
Any mistake that I made, any thoughts that I had that were kind of rebellious, like I'm going to keep those to myself
right.
because I'm the good one.
Yes.
I don't remember feeling off. I do remember feeling like I think about things a lot. I like having my alone time. I love taking things in my bedroom and setting them up a certain way. I mean, those
Yes.
play schemes, that we see, like
Mhm.
kids lining up trucks. I didn't do
Yes.
that, but I had dolls and I'd set them up at the tea party table and then I'd leave them there, change their outfit, fix their hair, put them in their spot, and then they're all done.
Yes, you would
That sort
create
of
a
thing.
scene. Yeah, so it
Yeah.
wasn't
And then it
lining
was
up
it was over.
toys, it was just a
No,
scene.
it was a visual thing, right?
Yep.
But then I didn't pretend with them. I just left
Yeah.
them there. So now, having a child of my own and see how she plays pretend and how imaginative she is, I didn't have a great imagination. I just wanted
Wow.
things to look a certain way. So there's little things like that.
I remember playing with Barbies as a kid and thinking, are you supposed to make them talk to each other? Like, I really much preferred to put them in their outfits and have kind of like a scene that was going on in my head, but it definitely wasn't something I was acting out. I felt like that was so weird when people did that.
Yes. I guess I was thinking of their emotions too, now that I
Yeah.
think of it. Like, I got a Beauty and the Beast Barbie set
Oh,
and
yeah.
I would lay them next to each other and I'm like, they love each other and this is where they sleep and they're going to bed. And like, that's it.
I love it. You're like, that's it. End of story.
Yeah. No
No
more
further
play.
questions. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what were some of your interests growing up? Did you have anything that looking back now seems like a special interest?
I was very much an observer,
Mhm.
right? Thinking about family parties, all of my cousins were older. We were the youngest kids in the family. And so they were all cool and they were all, and I was just, I would just sit back and watch. That's one thing I've always loved human behavior, even as a kid,
Mhm.
like figuring people out and wanting to do what they're doing and be like, the cool one, I guess. I played instruments. I was pretty good at that.
Did you? How many instruments are we talking, Maggie? Were you just one
Listen,
instrument a year
I
or one
wasn't a
instrument throughout?
prodigy, but
Mhm,
I
mhm.
I was pretty good at piano growing up.
Right.
So from elementary through, high school, I played piano. I played the organ at my cousin's wedding when I was like 12 years old, I think.
Okay. That seems prodigy-ish, but okay, we'll
Well,
let it go. All right.
and then my older brother was so cool and he played in a rock band. And
Oh.
so I had to get all my girlfriends together and we made a rock band. And then I became the band leader. Like I taught her how to play drums and then I taught her how to play guitar, like the bossiness,
Yes.
in control. That was very much the case too. But I didn't stick with those things. It was just like, we're going to be Nirvana and we're going to play
Yep.
these songs. And then nobody really did their part. And so that was over. But yeah, I can kind of pick up an instrument and fiddle around with it and figure it out.
Now, here's my follow-up instrument question. When you were learning these instruments, did you ever push back on reading music?
Read music with piano, but I didn't read music anywhere else.
I
Yeah, I
love
was just
that.
figuring it out. Yeah.
That is one of my favorite, like, low-key neurodivergence traits is that I find a lot of people I had a ton of trouble with that. I just refused to read music as a younger kid, and as I've talked to other people about playing music, so many people have said to me that they either hated reading music or they never learned to do it or they did it very differently than other people, and I find that fascinating because a lot of times people didn't know that they weren't reading the music, that they were memorizing it or they were sort of taking it in a different way, which is so cool.
Well, it's funny now, if I went back, I can't read sheet music anymore. Like, I would love to go
Mm-mm.
back and play piano again, but I lost it. So it must have been
Yeah.
just that it was so ingrained that I had it. But now I think also because what I was playing was pretty complicated, I've
Yeah.
tried and there's no way I could read it again.
That's so wild. Now, do you feel like you have a unique relationship with music? Do you find it soothing, or do you feel like in adulthood it means something to you in a different way than other people?
Hard to know how other people's brains function, but sometimes I do think that I have some sort of like, how people say like their emotions being tied to it and like
Yeah.
synesthesia kind of things. If something either triggers a memory or the sound of it is really special in a certain part of a song, I get goosebumps really easily. So I
Yes.
have like these visceral reactions to songs. I remember hearing a song that I hadn't heard in a long time that my best friend and I in high school really liked. And the moment it came on, the tears were just streaming down my face.
Oh, I
So
love
like
that.
so I get like super emotional when I listen to music, like certain things that trigger a memory or an emotion. It's kind of crazy. I think that I do, and I think it could be that I have an ear for things and I did growing up too. So just
Yeah.
like the relationship in my youth and how it's changed and grown, for sure.
Yeah.
I do feel like I experience it a little different.
I feel like music is so regulating too. If I go to a show or whether it's like a Broadway show or a concert or even just, someone's playing at a restaurant, I feel like it just takes over my emotions in such a visceral way that it's almost impossible to not notice.
I think the other part of it, and as an adult, when we do less, right? We have kids, we have jobs, all those things. The thing that I've gone back to recently is going to shows, to like rock shows and stuff. And I love it so much because I can't think about all the other stuff. Like, you can only think about that. It's so
Yes.
like it overtakes everything. And so it becomes therapeutic. It's like a break from all the noise in my head
Yeah.
that and something I can focus on for an hour or two. It's the best.
Somebody at one of our retreats was talking about that same sort of a similar idea, but he was talking about high risk interests. He was saying things like sports cars, like racing cars and going at
Sure.
really, really high speeds. When you're doing something like that, the only thing you can think about is survival and finding that to be really comforting. And then someone else was like, "Oh, me too. I actually like to get in freezing cold water, like get in the ocean during the winter and things like that because at that moment all you can notice is what your body is feeling." And so many people were like, "Me too, me too." And they had similar things where it was a way to get their brain to stop being so busy and just sort of stay on one channel. And I think that's such a fascinating concept because we don't often think of it that way. I think we just think like, "Oh, music feels really good." But I do wonder if it's kind of a healthy almost like a healthy dissociation of tuning out some of the other channels so it feels like you can appreciate just one.
I feel that for sure. I think that it's not high risk at all. I'm like the opposite of high risk, but the other time
Same.
the other time I feel that is when I create art because I like to do
Mm.
things that are super precise. And so if I have to like put all of my energy on focusing on this tiny little thing, I can't, all the other noise goes away too.
Wow.
So that's the other time that I do it.
So what kind of art do you get into? What does that look like for you?
Much like my musicianship as a kid, I'm kind of trying to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I paint. And then I also do a lot with resin. So I've been doing jewelry. I've made a few tables.
Ooh.
I'll make ornaments. I'll make like all this stuff. And so like when you have a little tiny thing, like, I don't know if you can see, I have this little, it's got a dried
Yes.
flower in it, but
Love
you
it.
have to put it in perfectly and there can't be any bubbles. And you have to like, there's so much that goes to it and it's like time sensitive too. And you've got to,
Yeah.
I don't know. And I love that I have to just focus on that. So when I'm overwhelmed, it's been a long day, everyone's being loud. I go in the basement, I put headphones on, and I do my resin, and I'm like a little,
Yes.
I'm like a little guy putting a train set together.
I love it. I love it. I don't know if you could see show and tell my resin. I did not make this. I did not make this at all. I bought this. However, I was so just taken with this jeweler. Like she just has beautiful jewelry. I was in a little gift shop and I was like, what is this? She's like, it's resin. I'm like, I know you do this for a living. Can you just give me a 10-minute tutorial? I was so fascinated. I'm like, how do you get good at this? How did you learn? Asking her all these questions. And I was obsessed. And then we came home, we took a class and I was like, I'm not very good at this. But we went and got I feel like we had to level up our supplies and get different things to, be more precise about it. But it's a beautiful art form. And I feel like every time I bring this up with other autistic women,
We
they're
love
like,
it.
I love resin.
Yeah,
Like
of
we are
course.
all resining.
I know. And it's like, and maybe it's because anyone can pick it up. Like something like
Yes.
drawing or sculpting, like you have to have a talent for that.
Yeah.
But this, like if you get the right materials, anyone can do it. I think people are like, oh my God, you make such great stuff. And I want to be like, anyone can do this. Like,
Yes.
you just have to take the time.
There's something about a process too. I find a lot of people really like to do a lot of things that have a process, whether it's an elaborate process to make coffee or jewelry making or whatever it is. There's something about step by step by step that feels really good to the brain for a lot of people.
Totally. I know. I
Yeah,
totally agree with that. Again, like
absolutely.
anything I can find that's going to give me a little break from all
Yeah.
the other crap I'm thinking about all day, I'm going to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And it's like a creation thing too. At the end of it, you can look at it and be like, I did this.
Well, I think that's another way that I base my worth on is like what I can accomplish. And
Yeah.
with resin, it can be done in a couple of minutes. Look at all that I accomplished today. Like I feel
That's
like I did a
amazing.
lot.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why I picked it up too.
Now, did you figure it out on your own? Did you take classes? How did that work for you?
I figured it out on my own.
Yep. I figured that
I'm
was the
not
answer.
I'm
Mhm.
not gonna like obviously there's YouTube videos and things like that, but I started painting a few years ago and then it was something, you look on Pinterest and you see all the things and I'm like,
Yeah.
someday I want to try that. And then I was thinking like, why don't I just do it? Like
Yeah.
even if I don't know what I'm doing, I can figure it out. And then I just slowly have done more and more and more. And yeah, I mean, I'm at the point where I'm making tables and big things too. And yeah, it's really fun.
That's amazing. I was on some kind of social media last night. I think it was Instagram, and this is on my feed as we speak. Someone was making a headstone out of resin and flowers, and it was so beautiful. But I was like, "Why is this on my feed?" Like, I don't want to make headstones out of resin.
Neither
Really,
do I.
really lovely, but let's
I
stick
think
with
I'm good.
jewelry. Thanks so much, algorithm.
No, it's gonna show up on mine because
Yeah,
my
I'm
phone
sorry.
is
Oh,
listening.
yeah, I know it's worse. The phone is always listening. So tell me a little bit about the overlap for you of your career and this neurodivergence piece you mentioned in the beginning. Obviously, like coming into contact with this with, clients first. How has that been for you to continue in that field and now that you have this, understanding of your own brain?
Complicated for sure for me. I guess in the positive way, I find myself advocating a lot more for situations where it feels like the team gets a report, whatever it might be, and they're like, this
Mhm.
kid doesn't have autism. And then I can kind of slow everybody down and be like, okay, let's pause for a second. Let's think about how it can look different in different people. I think I've helped some families that were given bad information. When they seem open, there have been a couple of families where we got a report back on another little girl, and hers came back as anxiety, OCD, ADHD, all this stuff. And then we talked in the meeting with the parents, and the dad kind of said, like, do you guys think that this is what we're dealing with? And, everyone kind of said, yeah, we
Mm.
take the reports as we get them. After the meeting, I went in the hallway and I said, I hope you guys don't mind. I hope I'm not overstepping, but I don't think that that's correct. I think that she might be autistic. And they're like, thank God somebody said it.
You had to
And I
say
was
it.
like, oh, because that was risky, right? Like I waited until after the meeting,
Yeah, you never know how that's going to land.
right? I know. But I was like, I have a feeling that this family is open to it. I'm gonna risk it. And they're like, yeah, we think so too. Because, when it's ADHD and it's, OCD, why is she struggling with social things? And then with the OCD, it was a perseveration, right? People think OCD is like, oh, I need things to look a certain way. Well, that's not really OCD.
Right.
But again, people don't really know that. And so, me having how it works inside my brain, when I hear it in somebody else, when I can say, like, oh, I do that too. So, they're probably dealing with similar things that I am. Let me give them an inside track of what they're thinking.
You're sort of translating.
Yeah, where she's like, she doesn't understand emotions. Let me present it this way. So I have found myself able to do that more. Also, just more neuro affirming, I think. A lot of times, as special ed teams, we want to come up with goals that are going to help someone be more successful. But I think a lot of the goals can be, let's change this person's brain.
Yeah.
That's not our goal. That's not
That's
my
not what we're
goal.
here to do.
That
Yeah.
I don't If someone just said to me, "I want you to care less about being on time," I'd be like, girl, screw yourself. Like I'm gonna be on time. Don't tell me what to do."
Don't
You
change
know?
me. Yeah.
Right. And then we're telling these kids like, "Oh, you have to do this in conversation." Yes, there are things that societally we should be able to do, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if they look them in the eye or not. I don't care if
Right.
they're looking in the eye. If they're going to be upset about a social situation that they were in days later, I do that too.
Hmm.
No one can tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
We want to give them the space to be able to think about it, to, tell them that it's going to be okay, but they have to process that thing in their own time. So things like that, I think I've been
Yeah.
helpful with. I think when it comes to this diagnosis in general, the one area that I still kind of grapple with at times is because I am successful, I'm functional, I have a family, I have a job, I have friends, I have all these things. And then people that are dealing with the really hard, nonverbal, aggressive,
Hmm.
all those types of kids. And for me to say, like, oh, I have that too. Like, sometimes I do struggle with that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe you have guidance on that, but I
Oh,
do, because people are like, oh, everybody's diagnosed these days. Oh, and everybody's got this and got that. And then I'm coming in here like, oh, I have that too. And then I'm not struggling. It
yeah.
doesn't feel like a disability to me. It feels like divergent.
Yeah.
Feels like I think a little differently than some people, but I don't think it's hindered me really in any way. So I do struggle with that part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of people are stuck on that piece where it's like if we called it something different, it would feel different. Somehow calling it, since they changed it to everyone being under this autism spectrum title, even though I think a lot of us don't love the DSM approach to it. I think it makes people who have higher support needs feel almost insulted. Like you don't get to speak on, my kid's experience or on my experience, which I think is fair and valid. And also, I think the people that are high masking, like a lot of us who are high masking are going, well, actually, I think you'd be surprised at how much behind the scenes is sort of similar for some people. If you take away all the accommodations, all the supports, and look at adults having meltdowns, I think most of the people, that they work with, that they're even friends with, may not know that things can get so bad for them behind closed doors when they're not accommodated. So that's the part that I think is tricky too, is that, in no other mental health place are we evaluating people by functioning. We're not like,
Yeah,
oh, you're depressed. Well, but like, are you high functioning depressed or are
that makes
you really
sense.
struggling?
Yeah. Are you able to leave
So,
the house or not?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like we just believe people that they're depressed. So it almost feels like people feel like they have to justify it or be like, no, no, it's real, that kind of thing.
Oh,
So
I've
I
had to
wonder,
do that.
yeah, like I
I've
wonder how
had,
that has shown up for you.
so it feels weird, but I don't know what other word to use, but I'm not like out to
Yeah.
everybody. I have not felt great about a lot of the responses that I've gotten. Certain people like friends and things like that, granted, neurodivergent people find each other, so they're all very
Yeah.
understanding, right?
Yes.
Like one of my best friends, she's got dyslexia and ADHD, and so when I brought this up to her, she's like, "Oh, tell me more," instead of like,
Yeah.
"No." But I've brought things up to people on the special ed team at work, thinking they'll get it. I remember one woman I told, and I was talking about a little girl who was given a diagnosis, and I said, "Well, I understand because I'm working on a diagnosis for myself too." And she's like, "No, you're not." And I'm
Ugh,
like, "Oh God." It's like my heart
icky.
sank. Granted, I get it because I am super high masking.
Yeah.
My whole MO at work is let me sound as smart as I can.
Mhm.
Let me make everyone else feel comfortable. Let me smile at the right times, make the joke at the right times. I work so hard
Yeah.
all the time that I'm not surprised that people don't see it. Because if people saw it, I'd be like, oh, shoot, I'm not doing a good enough job of not
Yeah.
showing this. At home, it's different. So I get it. But I would also hope that people would respond in a way that's more like, oh, I'm curious to know more about that. That's what you hope the response is, but I guess we're not there yet, you
We are
know?
certainly not there yet. I noticed that too. A lot of the people that I work with are out in places where they feel comfortable, whether it's like online communities or with certain friends that are also neurodivergent, but they end up not telling their family or they don't make it known at work and things like that. And I can completely relate to that. I think that that's a really tricky place because it's sort of asking you to prove it or to
Yeah.
explain it. And I think, it's such a sensitive personal thing. And I find a lot of the struggles, especially for women and other high maskers, it's internal. How do you
Yeah.
explain to somebody, I drive myself crazy replaying conversations in my head, or there's 8 tabs open at any given time, and it's really hard to get my work done, things like that. And then a lot of times people respond, oh, everybody feels that
Oh,
way
I
and
do
things
that
like that.
too.
Oh,
Yeah. And that's what it is. It's that you can, and granted, at home, when things come up, because, it's something with my family that it's a kind of still a work in progress of them understanding it. But when a situation arises, I can see, so if we can pause for a second, let me tell you what I'm thinking right now,
yeah.
or like what is happening in my head and why I might be frustrated with this. And you don't understand the frustration. Like, and I can do that in the moment, which helps. But with people at work, I'm not going to be like, let me pause and tell you what I'm thinking to prove to you why
Let
my
me
brain
walk
is
you
different
through
than
this
yours.
process. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm happy to do that with certain people because I like explaining things. But yeah, it's not appropriate. And so I don't want to defend myself. I don't want
Mhm.
to justify or, explain why I got here. So sometimes I'm just like, well, I just like to sit lunch and eat lunch by myself in my office and everyone can leave me alone. And we'll
Yeah.
just do it that way.
And does anybody push back on that? Do you find that you're explaining yourself why you want to do that, or does anyone find it weird?
No, I don't really care to be so actually I'm lucky. My sister works at one of my schools with me and she also doesn't really like small talk. So she'll just come in my office with me and we'll close the door and then we can talk or not talk as much as we want and no one
I
really
love that.
questions it. Yeah.
I love that so much. I've had so many teachers that I've worked with over the years and people who work in schools, and I always ask them, like, do you go to the staff lounge? Do you? Do you go to the teacher slash? 100% no.
Absolutely not. I'm
Absolutely
never going to
never
do
set
that.
foot in that
I'm
room.
going to
No,
go
thank
heat
you.
up my food for 2 minutes and
Maybe.
I'll do a little bit if I have to.
Maybe.
And then we'll do a little back and forth and I'll be like, "See ya." And then that's
Mhm.
the end.
Mhm. Yep. I'm like, "Hey, Susan, how are the kids? Great, bye." Yeah.
The thing is I'm never going to ask. It's so funny. My friend at work, she is not autistic at all. She's raging ADHD, undiagnosed, but we walk together and we'll walk and I do the little when I walk past people and she'll be like, "Hey bear, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Nope, I'm not doing that."
Not doing it.
And so, yeah, you can tell the difference between us where I smile
Yeah.
and she starts a conversation. I'm never going to do that.
Never, never. I worked for years in some of these bigger high schools. I mean, I didn't even learn most of the teachers' names. I'm
I
just
don't know
like,
most of
unless you're
them.
in a team with me, I really don't have any reason to talk to you other than to
See, I
like
feel bad
taking this
about
kid.
that, but okay,
Mhm.
now I know that that's other people do that too.
So overwhelming. I just find names are super overwhelming, faces are super overwhelming. So if I walk into a room, I'm like already stressed out about the kid I'm pulling and making sure that I know what they look like and what their name is because anytime I'm put on the
Mm,
spot, I'm like, I don't even know my own name right now. It's so overwhelming. So even
yeah.
teachers' name, oh no, I don't need extra names to learn. It's too
The
much.
problem is that the kids call them by their last name and then the
Yes.
adults come by their first name. The good news is down the hall from my office there is a staff picture. So half the time I know it's smart.
Oh.
So if I'm standing by the bathroom door and I'm like, "Oh, I got to meet with Mrs. Smith." I'm like Smith, Smith, Smith. "Oh, okay, Jenny." I'm like, "Got it." So when people
Oh,
say,
that's amazing.
yeah. So, maybe you could do
Cheat
something like
sheet.
that.
That's really great. Oh,
Yeah.
man. And that goes on for years for me. Like, I'll learn somebody and be like, "Oh, wait, do I know that one? Do I know that one?" Like, it just feels like it's so I don't know if it's like people talk about face blindness, things like that. I don't know if it's that, but for me, it's just names. Names are just so hard.
I'm not as great with names, but I am really good at faces.
Really. So
Yeah,
if you see someone out of context, if you see someone from school at the grocery store, it'll click for you?
actually like a game that I play with myself because it's like one of my little like, I don't know, specialized interests, but there will be times when I see someone out in public and then I like lock their face into my head, kind of like, I know I've seen this person before. And then
Wow.
I take the time, granted, probably the people that are with me don't like it because I probably shut down a little bit. Like, I'm focused on this right now. I need to figure this out. And a lot of times I figure it out. So it'll be like someone who worked at, 7-Eleven that I bought a candy bar from a couple years ago or something like that. Or like,
Wow.
yeah, and so it's actually something that I've done a bit of research on, like this condition that, you said facial blindness. I had a little girl that had facial blindness that I worked with. When was this? Probably like 12 or 13 years ago. And because I like to research, I did some research on it
Yeah.
and I learned a lot about it. If you wanted to take a few minutes on that.
Oh, please tell me everything. I'm fascinated.
Okay, it's called prosopagnosia is the
Yes.
formal name for it. And so much like autism, it's also a spectrum that I learned. People that have full on prosopagnosia, you know a little bit how it works. Like they see all the features, but they don't
Mhm.
make a pattern,
Right.
right? So it's like if you saw someone's face and the features were turned upside down or
Hmm.
sideways, they're there. They're just, it's not recognizable as that person. So this little girl, she was the best. She was twice exceptional. She's a genius, but she has this thing that causes her a
Wow.
ton of anxiety,
So
understandably.
much.
Yeah, I talked with the mom a lot, and the more research that I did when with the in terms of it being a spectrum, you have people that are just normal in how they interpret faces, and then on the other end, you have what's called being a super recognizer. So those are the people that they see a face once and they clock it and then it's in there forever. I couldn't just leave it at that. There's this university in Australia that does research on super recognizers. So they had a test online. I took the test. I think I scored in the top like 1 or 2%.
Unbelievable. So you're a super recognizer.
Well,
Confirmed.
listen, I think so. Based on this university in Australia, I am. So I don't know what that means. The more that I've read about it, they say that people that have this are more reliable than like AI to determine if a
Got
face is
it.
the same or the not. So like I've tried to feel like, is there a way that I could do like practice more and help with, whether it's like
Wow.
identifying somebody. I don't know, man. Then the other fun game that I play is I see someone in a show or a movie or whatever, and then I'll pause it and I'm like, do you know who that person is? And everyone's like, I don't know who that is. I'll be like, that's the kid
Oh my
from that
gosh.
movie from the 90s.
You are IMDb.
Yeah, I kind of am IMDb.
That's unreal. How long
Yeah,
have
so
you
that's my
known that you
talent.
did that? Did you think that was totally typical and everybody did that until you looked this up?
Yeah. Well, growing up, so one thing that was different for me is I was kind of my friend's memory for them. So I would have friends be like, what was that guy's name who blah, 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 blah. And I would remember it. Or my friend would be like, what was when was it when this happened? And then I would remember it. So I was kind of similar with faces too, where like my brother is really good at it too. I don't know if he took the test, but we would quiz each other. Like, watch the new show that came out and the lady with the red hair, tell me if you know what she's from. So he and I would go back and forth on that. I think I'm better than he is though.
That's unreal.
It's just a thing we've always done.
So I find that with most things autism related, most of the people that I work with are on one extreme or the other. There's almost no gray area in so many different ways. And this is a great example. So what you're describing makes so much sense to me. I am the other end. I am the other end. It could be someone I've seen in a show 12 times and I'll be like, something rings a bell here. And I can't, like, I need someone else to connect the dots. And I always find the things that I remember are so bizarre. Like, I used to take photos for families. I would do family photography, and I literally would not remember what, say, like, the mom and dad's faces would look like. So I was spending so much time focused on the kids when I was taking the photos to get them to, have a good time and
Yeah.
react, that I almost wasn't clocking the parent's face. So I would be out at the mall or something later, see the family, and have some awareness that the parents should be familiar to me, and I would have to look at the kid in order to get the kind of like context of why do I know this person. And then I'd see the kid and be like, oh yeah, and remember the kid's name. I didn't know the parents had a name. I mean, it's just so wild what my brain will just kind of hone
Yeah.
in on, and so embarrassing because this could be a family I've worked with for 10 years and it's still, I'm just like, I will remember your kid's name because it's so bizarre what the brain holds on to. And I find that this happens with people with studying, with things they have to remember at work, scheduling. Like a lot of people have very unique memories when it comes to what
Yeah.
they're paying attention to.
I think in my brain, either I know it or I don't. Like, I never studied growing up. It wouldn't matter. It's either like the information has stayed in my head or it's not going to.
Oh,
So when I take tests, I will never second guess myself.
yeah.
I'm always done first because, like, I remember taking the boards for the OT exam. You get
Oh,
4 hours. I think I was done in like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
wow.
Yeah,
You were out of
because it's
there.
like it's either there or it's not.
Yep.
And so I think when I talk about like brain differences and stuff, I don't like to sound braggy at all, but like sometimes I just get it.
You
It's
just
like
get it.
it's just there. And I think it might be a sensory thing because I like to figure out patterns, like what I take in, like I see things and it's there. I have a little bit of a photographic memory. I
Hmm.
hear things and it's there. Like I hear accents well. I hear changes in tone. Like I don't know if this is a thing that you have or not, but like voices in cartoons, I know who everybody is.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I think it's a sensory thing with
Yeah.
me. I'm not sure. Like that's one thing before I had the diagnosis that I'm like something is different about me.
Yeah.
I have these things and I can't explain it, like like a lack of synaptic pruning or whatever it
Yes.
is.
All important in your brain.
Right. To where I'm like, I just hold on to things. I know a voice. I know a face. I don't know what it is. I wish I could explain it better, but like, it's just, I have it.
I find with a lot of people, when I'm doing assessments, I'll ask them about studying in school. Did you have to study? Did you take a lot of notes? It's shocking how many people working with like neurosurgeons that are like, I've never studied. Like
No, I
that
never really did.
that really seems like something you should have to do as a neurosurgeon, but they just retain everything. And then, and a lot of people I've worked with too have said, you know what, honestly, it wasn't that hard for me to get through school and schooling that should be really hard, because just the brain retains everything, which is super comforting. I'm like, I want that doctor for sure. But
Yeah, they just
it's
know it.
fascinating. But they don't
Right.
realize, a lot of times how hard it is for other people to retain that information that doesn't happen. It doesn't come that naturally.
Yeah, it is hard. And I can understand the differences in how people work, but I only know my experience. I only
Yeah.
know for me, it's like maybe I just need to take the notes and writing it down or whatever it might be, seeing it highlighted on a page. And then I
Yeah.
remember where it was on the page, like that's kind of more of how I remember things. Like
Yes.
in the second paragraph, and I remember it looked like this. And then I can kind of get into that little, file in my brain instead of like, I looked at that information 10 times. And so now I know it,
Yes,
you
I do
know?
that too. I can see whenever I was studying and then I would get to the test, I'd be like, oh, it's on the, second part of the page. It's highlighted in orange. It starts with an A. And I would have to almost recreate the page in my own head
Yeah.
to access it rather than just remembering it. But I had no idea that was weird. No one was asking how I was remembering things for tests. So
We don't talk about these things until
no.
you meet other people that are like, how do you do it? And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, is that weird? I guess I didn't know that
Yes.
was weird.
Do
Yeah.
you have any other quirky things that you realize later, like, oh, that was unusual?
Well, I didn't realize that like every moment of my day since I was a child, I've been stimming like all day long
Wow.
because it's really subtle. But I
Yeah.
had a friend point it out to me in my 20s and I wanted to be like, back off. Okay. This is just a thing that I do.
Leave me alone.
But I always blamed it on my playing piano because talk about nature versus nurture.
Mhm.
My dad and my brother are both musicians. My
Yep.
dad will do things with his hands all day long,
Yep.
and my brother will play like drums on things all day long. And I will like count things out on my fingers, like as if it's a piano.
Yes.
So like if
Yes.
I say something, I say it in my head and then I'm doing this with it.
Uh-huh.
And then I also do it with my toes. And so a friend of mine, we were watching movies. She's like, "What are you doing with your feet?" And I was like, "Nothing."
Nothing. Mind your
But
own
like,
business, okay?
yeah, like shut up, okay? Um, but like that's the thing. If I'm not doing something with my fingers, I'm doing something else that's a stim all day long.
Mhm.
And my therapist pointed out to me, she's like, that's a stim too. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, yep.
Okay.
All right. I
I was fine not knowing it was a stim. It's
like just leave
fine.
me alone
Leave
again.
me alone, all right?
But yeah, I think that's another thing too, where it's like, well, my family plays instruments with their fingers. That's what we do.
Mhm.
But like, no, we're all stimming. So
Yes.
whenever I see a kid stimming, That used to be a goal too, is to, like, get them to stop. It's like, I'm
Hmm.
not gonna tell them to stop. Granted,
Never.
if it's unsafe or something, I'm gonna
Sure.
give them another option, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm doing it all day, and if someone told me to stop, I'd be like, "I'm not going to."
The stimming part is fascinating. When I first started working with autistic kids, it was big time that you were supposed to tell them to stop. That it
Yeah,
was like, oh, okay, they need to know that that's not appropriate. And that there was a big push to getting
sure.
them to appear normal. I remember people telling me in my internships, well, they can't do that in class. Kids are going to tease them. And we just internalized. I was just like, oh, okay, I guess that's what we do. And now I am encouraging people to stim. I love stimming. I think stimming is one of the great, beautiful things about being neurodivergent. And I think people's stims are fascinating. I get like there are never enough good stim stories for me. I'm like, tell me all the cool things.
Oh,
There's one
yeah.
that I didn't realize I did until somebody else said it. It was a couple years into doing assessments, and somebody was talking about having a certain tune play in their head when they do certain things. And I was like, oh, yeah, like when you go up and down the stair. And they were like, do you have an up and down the stairs, like, kind of like audio in your head? I'm like, yes, it's the soundtrack from The Daily Show, which started in 1989. I had to look it up. I didn't watch The Daily Show in 1989. I don't think I watched The Daily Show until I was much older, but that tune, as long as I can remember, and it's connected to like a pattern of how to take the stairs, like how many steps at a time and the whole thing. Never. I mean, what therapist is like, so tell me what goes through your head when you go up and down the stairs? But I've never, ever, ever gone up and down any stairs without that I can remember, without that being in my head. And I have no idea why. I mean, no
I'm
idea.
gonna
It
have to
makes no
think about
sense.
that because 'cause I'm
Hmm.
sure I have those things, but they're so automatic that I don't even think about
Yeah.
it. Like, I know that there are some quirky things that I do, like, every time I do it, but yeah, I can't think of a specific one, but it's so interesting when we talk about these things,
Yeah.
know that obviously we're all different, but, like, we're all the same. We're all doing the
Yes.
same weird stuff all the
All
time.
the same. But it provides such interesting context to some of the things that we're taught, because I think a lot of people believe that stimming is something you do when you're anxious, or, when something's wrong or you're trying to self-soothe. And there's certainly things that people do that fit into that category. But I'm not anxious going up and down the stairs. But I don't know. There is something oddly like comforting about it. But I don't think it stemmed from me being like, ooh, the stairs. I wish I had a catchy tune that would help get me up. Like, it's so random. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of what I work with at school with the kids too, but unfortunately, a lot of the things are unsafe. Like,
Yeah.
how I see that with you is like every time I do the stairs, I do this thing, right?
Yes.
And that's a lot of what our kids are dealing with too. Every
Yeah.
time this little girl that I work with, every time she goes to the bathroom, she washes her hands and then she splashes it on the mirror. It's like, well, I don't, we shouldn't really do that. But
Right.
like it's become like, that's what I do every time. And
Yeah.
so there are certain things where it's like, if it's not hurting anybody, let's all do it.
Sure.
But she also, every time this happens, she slams her talking device into the wall. It's like,
Oh,
well,
no.
we're gonna have to come up with a
Probably
new
not do
one.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Every time I talk, I'm gonna be going like this, and nobody, it's not
Yep.
gonna bother anybody.
Yeah.
But if I was slamming this microphone into the wall,
Sure.
well, then we're gonna need to work on that.
So do you work with a lot of kids where that's part of what you're working on, is helping them to develop something that's a little healthier?
Yeah, because I am looking at their sensory needs, right? So if I'm in the classroom and they're stimming a lot and they're able to engage in what they're doing, go for it. But if it's in a way that's like I can see that they're getting heightened, you can hear the sounds becoming more, dire, whatever it is, like
Yeah.
this is too much. Hey, buddy, should we go in the sensory room for a little bit? And
Yeah.
then we can kind of regulate a little bit, see how we feel. If they can talk, we can talk about it. If they can't, I'm going to be like, are we ready to go learn? Things like
Yeah.
that. And then we try and go back to it. So yeah,
Unreal.
that's what I'm doing like all day long. And it does help to have a little bit of a inside track. Like, oh yeah, I've been there. I felt that too.
I also need to go to the sensory room. Yeah,
Yeah. The
absolutely.
the lights are dim. Nobody else
Yeah.
is in there. It's great.
There was a school that I visited. I used to work in this non-public school that was in Maryland, but they had locations everywhere. And one of their schools was in New Jersey, and they let us go visit and do a tour. And it was a school for mostly neurodivergent kiddos. And this was long before this was my specialty. This was very early on in my career. But I remember going, and they had not just a sensory room, but they had stations where people could go, and they could kind of like spin on a swing. They could go through one of those. it almost looks like on Nickelodeon, like when you would go through the tube and they would like squeeze you and then you go down the
Sure.
slide, like the
Yeah.
squeeze machines.
Yes.
And they had all kinds of stuff. So it was written into their plans. So that it would be like, they would do 2 rotations of work for 40 minutes and then they would go spin, for 5 minutes, or they would do this and then they would get rolled out. And so it was wild. I remember thinking, that is so interesting. And now I realize, looking back, even as a kid, I was spinning in office chairs. I would go outside in the playground and just twist on the swing for the
Yep.
whole recess period and never thought twice about why I was doing that or why I wasn't, doing what other kids were doing at recess. But I think a lot of people found ways to kind of access that as a kid and to a lesser degree.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that I have to defend for kids too is we have kids that are, whether they're in the gifted program, say, and they're more kind of like that Asperger's-y type of, autism
Yeah.
where it's more social. Then they go out to recess and the parents will say like, "Oh, are they playing with other kids at recess?" And the teacher might say, "Well, they like to kind of walk around and they might be by themselves a lot." And the parents will, want them to be social. And I'm like,
Yeah.
again, another moment where I'm like, "Can we take a pause?"
Yeah.
That might be what they need at that moment.
Yeah.
They might be working on being social all day long
All
at
day
school,
long.
and this is their one time
Yeah.
that they don't have to talk. I don't want to push them to be social during that time. So that's another
Absolutely.
time where I can intervene like, let's think about how their brain is functioning right now.
Yes.
What do they need? And so I do a lot of that as well, where it's like, yeah, if a kid needs to spin for 20 minutes and not talk to people, or if they
Yeah.
need to walk around the perimeter and talk to themselves, like, yeah, let them do it. Because
100%.
they can't do that when they're in class. Let it go.
It's the same reason why we're eating in our offices, not in the
Yeah,
teacher's
man, you
lounge.
can't force me to eat with other people
No
after
way.
I've worked all morning.
Something you said before that I thought was really interesting. You said for you, it has never really felt like a disability. Do you feel like there have been any parts of the autism experience for you that have been really negative or kind of behind closed doors things that maybe other people wouldn't see if they didn't live with you?
I did experience my first like shutdowns. All of these kind of internal things that I'm dealing with. I think that as I've gotten older, they get more intense just because my nervous system is a bit less flexible.
Yeah.
Growing up, I went to all the parties and I, things that places that were loud and chaotic and like I did all the things. And now it's not, some of it is that I don't want to, but some of it is that I can't.
Yeah.
And I've learned that the hard way. I think that's something that other people that don't have this would have a hard time understanding is I had a week where it was actually spring break last year where I felt there were many days in a row where I was just presented with other people's strong emotions and
Mm.
I took those on. I hate to say I'm an empath because I think I don't know, it's a little pretentious for me maybe
Mm.
to say it, but I do when other people are feeling really strong emotions, it I can't help but take it on and then it really tires me out.
Yeah.
So I had a couple of days where I was with family and my sister was really stressed out and I was trying to help, but I couldn't really help. And then I had a friend who was really bummed out about something and I was there and I was trying to help, but there was nothing I could do. And then I didn't sleep well. And then I had to do a craft fair with my jewelry. And then that's exhausting because do you talk to the people? Do you engage them? Do you leave
Right.
them alone? Do I say, I hate that. So I went back to work after 4 or 5 days of all of these emotions, and I was at work, and I remember my assistant principal came in, like, "Hey, Maggie, how's it going?" And I was like, "Uh, uh, it's okay." Like, I could not speak. I
Mhm.
couldn't come up with words, and I got home that day, and it was as if I was a robot. I went up to my room, I turned off all the lights, and I got under the covers, and it was kind of like I lost function. I took it too far and then my body shut down. Like it didn't
Yes.
allow me to do more. And that was really kind of scary because I didn't have a choice. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't have kept going.
Yes.
I think that was the first time where I was like, whoa, this is a real thing that's happening in my nervous system that I have
Yes.
no control over. And so that one time was enough for me to really start placing boundaries on things. And I
Yeah.
think I do have a lot of guilt with people seeing me in a way that is not how I want to be represented. I mean, I'm a high masker. So when I say no to things, I do feel people be like, well, she just doesn't want to. But I'm doing it to protect myself because I
Absolutely.
learned that I have to, right? Hey,
Yeah.
go to this thing at your daughter's school where you're going to talk to 100 people and it's going to be loud. And it's like, I'm not going to go. I'm trying to be more like, you can be annoyed, but I don't really care because like
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
So that is probably the
100%.
one area to where I'm placing more boundaries on things. I'm saying no more, and I'm trying to do it without guilt. That's my new thing in the last few years.
That's huge, and I think that what you're bringing up is such a great example, even as someone that, is not having shutdowns all the time, it sounds like it, but you notice the difference if I don't accommodate myself, if I just, operate under the assumption that I can go and go and go and it'll be okay, which I think a lot of high masking people think that they can, and it's almost humbling to go, "Wow, that did not work out," and I think that's a point where a lot of women are finding themselves after years of masking and kind of people pleasing for everybody else, they find out, you know what, I thought it was just I preferred not to, but I actually can't. It actually
Yeah.
stops me.
And I know we talk women at work. I mean, it's all women on my team. And we'll talk like, "Oh, what is everyone doing for the long weekend?" And someone will be like, "Oh, my kids have a basketball tournament." And I'm like, "I'm going and I'm going to sleep at a hotel by myself for 2 days." And they're all like, "Wow, you're so lucky." And I'm like, "I know, but also I have to."
Mhm. Mhm.
I like
Mhm.
I can't do the stuff that you guys get. Like, I don't say it in that way, but like, yes, it's a luxury and I'm super lucky. I have one child.
Yeah.
Dad can take her whenever like I need a break and he's really great about that, but also like I can't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to function if I did all of the things. So,
100%. Now, how long have you been incorporating that in your routine to get some time away?
probably since she was a toddler. So she's
Good for
almost
you.
8. I'd say I mean, during COVID too, when we were all stuck at home, I would find any excuse that I could. I am not a stay-at-home mom. I bless the people that can do it, but I
Yeah.
need a place that I can go. I need to get out of here. I need, time to do my thing. And
Yeah.
I think I just started like I'm going to go to a hotel that's 20 minutes away and I'm not going to talk for 24 hours. This was before I even knew anything about a diagnosis, but it was
Yeah.
like I just can't be with people all the time. I've probably done it. I have periods where I do it more than others, but where I do little solo trips, I go an hour or two
Yeah.
away. I go to vintage shops. I go to coffee shops. I
Yes.
go take long baths. I take walks. And like, it's so helpful for me. It's like medicine. I couldn't
Yeah.
function without it.
I love that. And, that's one of the biggest things that people don't do for themselves. In therapy, that's almost always one of the first places we start, especially with couples work. People will say, well, I'm a part of this couple. So if we're going to go somewhere, we have to go together. And I'm like, ooh, couple things. We have to find a time for that solo, the body needs solo time in a huge, huge way. And there's a lot of guilt. There's all these unwritten rules.
Feel self-indulgent.
Yes, like,
Yeah.
just go to a hotel by
Oh,
yourself. It's
look
like,
at you. You're so
uh-huh,
lucky. It's like,
yeah,
well, shut
yeah,
up.
yeah, and I do think that's a place where gender really comes to play too, where, it's far more common for men in the corporate world to be going on business trips and to have some of that solo time or some of that travel time or, to take an extra day here and there. Whereas a lot of women don't have that opportunity with their careers, and some do, but it feels different. People never give men a hard time for going on business trips, and they constantly have something to say if a mom leaves their kids. I think about that all the time.
I've kind of made it like, if you're gonna be gone for a few days during the week, I'm gonna go over the weekend then.
Yeah,
That's just how it's gonna go now. And I know he's working, so I
sure.
know his isn't all fun. Well,
Sure.
can go do something fun too, that's fine, but, like,
100%.
I need to do this, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it.
I even find that within my house. Like, I need to have sectioned off time where it's not necessarily always even alone. It's just I need to not belong to anyone. Like, I need to be able to be self focused and doing something that feels good to me and isn't in service to someone else. Even just like, what are you doing? What's our plan? Like, I need to not belong to you.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel that a lot with my daughter because I mean, bless her heart, she's the best. I love her so much, but when I'm there, it's like she's crawling inside of my body, you
Yes.
know? She's her elbows digging into my side so she can sit closer to me, and then I wanna sit on your lap. It's like, "Well, you're 8," you know? And then I've got a
Yeah.
dog climbing on this side, and then like, yes, I need to have a space that's a little more controlled, a little more
Yeah.
quiet. So it's usually like a bath, or this is my office downstairs, and I've got, like, my
Mm-mm.
art space. So I
I love
agree, like,
that.
I need to have spaces that are just mine.
I made a little corner in my bedroom that is like has a rocking chair and I have like a little light that's soft and all my soft blankets and people just tend not to come in my room. They don't usually know I'm there. So the kids will be like, "Where's mom?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it." But
Leave her
it's
alone.
nice. It really it's if I was downstairs reading a book on the couch, everybody would be, in my space, but it is huge. It strikes me that you do a really, really good job accommodating yourself. And I wonder if that sort of naturally evolved for you over time, just paying attention to what you need, or do you think you've made a more concerted effort since finding out about the autism piece?
I think I'm making more of an effort, but I do think certain things I did feel really uncomfortable with before, and
Mm,
after feeling uncomfortable enough times, I just decided that I didn't wanna be uncomfortable anymore.
yeah,
Again, my friend who she's like, "You've always been really good at saying no." And I'm like, "Well, I don't like spending time with people that don't feel good." Right?
yeah,
Like, how whatever
yeah,
way you can say that, but, like, these people, if whether it's we don't see eye to eye, or it's all surface level conversation, or I find myself being, like, really fake, or, like, not
yeah.
genuinely, like, that doesn't feel good. So
Mm-mm.
I'm not gonna do that thing with that person.
Yeah,
And I am a people pleaser in a lot of ways, but also I'm just gonna avoid that situation then. So I think there are things where it's like, "Oh, so and so's going here." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna go to that." I've always done that, but in terms of my nervous system with, like, sensory things, I think that's a newer, like, I have to stay home.
yeah.
I've been with people all day. I've had kids trying to hit me. I've had, like, I'm gonna come home. You guys go to the around the world party at school. I'm gonna sit on
Please.
the couch and not speak. And that's what I need. So yeah, I think I've gotten better at that part.
I wonder if that's why in so many ways, the shutdown thing is unusual for you and your life is naturally very accommodated and then also you're making these more deliberate, additions to accommodate yourself with the understanding that you need it. And it does sound like, your nervous system is in a place that a lot of people are trying to get to where it's just, I know what I need and I take care of myself.
It was kind of an anomaly. I think it was being spring break. That was what did it, right? Because normally I wouldn't have 3 days with my sister and her baby where he wasn't sleeping or he wasn't eating, and then staying over at my friend's house, and that, like, that was just it was a perfect storm. I think normally I could be like, "I do need a break, and I'm gonna not do this much." But when you have a week off from work, you're gonna make the most of it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I had done too much. So
Yeah.
now I know, right?
Yeah.
If I'm gonna have 3 days with my sister and her baby, then after that, I'm not gonna go do something with somebody else. Then
Yeah.
it's home by myself or whatever, and then I'll go see the friend.
I always tell people, give yourself a day when you come back from vacation. Don't come back on a Sunday and go to work on Monday. It never ends well.
And
Never.
my craft fair was on Sunday, and then I
Oh
went back to
boy.
work on Monday. So that was probably, like, the hardest part for me, like, the
Yeah.
people pleasing part after 4 or 5 days of pleasing everyone else. So it's like, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And granted, like, nothing was that bad the week before. It was just too many things in a row,
Yeah.
and now I
Yeah.
know that. So it was, like, such a learning experience for me.
That's huge. It's like death by a thousand cuts. It's not, no one thing is so overwhelming. It's just the sum of all the tiny overwhelming things.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Maggie, you are the best. I'm so glad that you were able to come and talk with us. I think your experience is so interesting. And I really love talking to people who have that intersection of lived experience and also that are doing this for a living and, that are working with other autistic people. You bring such an amazing insight to kiddos that probably don't have that same insight on themselves quite yet. And I really love your approach. I can't imagine how comforting it must be to be a family that, has you come up to them and be like, "Hey, I'm on your team. I'm trying to help you out and I'm seeing things that maybe other people are missing." That's such an amazing gift to be able to give people.
Thank you. I think my next thing, once I feel a little bit more confident, and maybe you can help with this route as well, is to kind of become the person that is educating educators at my schools on what it looks like in girls and things like that.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to decide if it's going to be a coming out kind of a thing or if it's just, this is something that I've been researching. But yeah, that's the next thing that I want to accomplish.
I love that. You know what's interesting? I do some big teaching events, but I've been doing also throughout little tiny, like I won't turn anybody down. So if it's a little, I recently did one with a little Montessori school in DC. I've had like therapist practices come to me and say, hey, we want to just understand more. And never, ever, ever do I do these teaching opportunities where people don't come up to me afterwards. And it's usually 5, 6, 7 people. I mean, you could have a room full of 30, you'll have 7 people come up afterwards and be like, you're talking about my kid, you're talking about me, you're talking about my educational experience. And it is so incredible to see teachers being like, tell me more, what can I read, what can I
I
learn,
know
how can I
that.
take a class? And I just feel like that's what we need. We need, it's not about these big, huge trainings and stuff like that. It's like the front lines. It's people getting in there who are real people, who are trustworthy to the people they're talking about. And then they listen. They're like, oh, well, if you're saying that, I trust you. And I know that, you know what you're talking about, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. So
Ooh.
I'll let you know how that goes.
Keep us in the loop. We love that.
I will.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Maggie. You are the best. And this will not be the last time we chat, I am sure.
I hope not. This was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. If you'd like to learn more about high masking, late diagnosed autism, check out our Instagram @neurocorious. And if you're interested in getting all the details of our unmasking retreats, please check out my website, CoreyAndreas.com. You can also find more content on our YouTube channel @That'sMePod. And if you haven't already, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. We can't wait to see you next time.